and final race on what has been a busy schedule for them, qualifying and one race yesterday and two races today in these conditions that just keep us guessing all the way, really. We've had a few rain showers throughout the day, nothing that's really turned into proper inclement weather. And there, look, that picture there sums up the weather at Snetterton today perfectly. It's warm, low 20s the ambient temperature, and we've got pretty much 50% blue sky, 50% cloudy sky. It's the cloudy sky that's concerning people, though, because some of those clouds do look rather ominous, and with this stiff breeze that's been blowing across the Snetterton circuit all day, it's moving the weather system in almost more quickly than the teams can keep up with, and that, I'm sure, is going to catch a few more out before the end of the day. The GT Academy then, as I said, they've had two races, one yesterday and one this morning, both though won by that man there, Angus Whiteside, the green number 52 car on pole position. Yesterday he was followed home by TOBY, TRICE and Wes Pearce. Today Trice was third. It was Gilbert Yates that managed to get himself onto the podium in second position. So it was a pretty entertaining second race, actually, which saw some good battling, not necessarily for the lead, but the battling behind very much entertained the crowd assembled here at Snetterton, and hoping for more of the same, really, as TOBY TRICE continues his challenge for the championship, and a challenge that's been going quite well. But Angus Whiteside, as we move now into the middle part of the season, starting to accumulate more and more points, and as he does so, close in on TOBY TRICE's championship lead. The grid then is cleared. They're about to head out onto their warm-up lap, their final warm-up lap of the day. For racing will get underway. There it is, the green flag waves. The marshals waving the flag there from on top of the start gantry. A brilliant view they've got as the cars head out then onto this final warm-up lap. Here's the grid then. Angus Whiteside and Gilbert Yates, two rookie drivers there, both competing within the rookie class, sharing the front row overall. TOBY TRICE and Roy Alderslade make up row number 2. They're the top two GT Academy drivers. Row number 3 for Julian Wantling and Ed Akers. Akers came from the very back of the grid earlier on to finish in 6th, so that's where he starts this one. Gary Wager and Lee Goldsmith are together on row 4. Then it's Wes Pearce and Martin Wills on the 5th row. Row 6 for Danny Dwyer and Sean Fleming, and then towards the back of the grid, the 7th row is where we find Tom Hartley Jr., who was rather roughed up by Darren Leung in the earlier race. Hartley Jr. has Wallace for company. He was a non-finisher yesterday, and Leung a non-finisher this morning after that contact that he had with Hartley Jr. Haven't heard any news of penalties for that contact, so it was clearly deemed to be a racing incident, although I'm sure that Tom Hartley Jr. may not necessarily agree with that. So, as I said in the race earlier on today, there are 3 championships going on, basically. There is a GTA class championship, a rookie class championship, and then the overall championship, which is, it combines the two. So your overall finishing position does matter in this series, unlike something like the GT5 Challenge, where the classes very much have their own separate competitions. In this one, it is very much worth racing people, even if they're not in the same class as you, because there are points to be scored, championships to be won, and we have seen, again, this weekend, as we've seen on numerous occasions in the past, drivers within the rookie class actually outperforming some of those, in theory, more experienced GTA class drivers. Indeed, there are 2 races this weekend, won by rookie driver Angus Whiteside, and in convincing fashion. Yesterday he won by 3.5 seconds, but that was a race that was cut short just past halfway because of that really unfortunate fire in the paddock, which I'm sure most of you have heard about by this point. Race 2, though, this morning ran the full distance, 20 minutes. They got 10 laps in, and it was a nearly 11-second lead for Whiteside, and he was further ahead than that at one point. The gap, I think, was up towards around 12.5 seconds, 2/3 of the way through the race. So Whiteside, really the man to beat this weekend, in much the same way that TOBY TRICE was over the opening weekend at Brands Hatch, where he won all 3 races, and then again managed to score heavily with 2 victories at Donington Park. However, missed out on the podium in race 3 at Donington, and TOBY, although he's been on the overall podium twice already this weekend, yet to stand on the top step. He had a 2nd yesterday, a 3rd this morning. The overall championship leader, TOBY TRICE, is going to be very, very keen to go that one better this time. You have to do it from 3rd on the grid there, because the grid for this 3rd race is the race result from race 2, basically. So Angus Whiteside, your winner, starts on pole. Gilbert Yates alongside him. And at the back, those that were in strife, Tom Hartley Jr. was 2 laps down in the end, as was Neil Wallace. They both made separate pit visits. Hartley Jr.'s was fairly obvious, the reason for that. The grey car there, you can see him, number 77, pulling into line. That was as a result of the contact with Darren Leung. But Neil Wallace was given a stop-go penalty for, I seem to recall, an out-of-position start. Or a 10-second time penalty. Sorry, it wasn't a stop-go, it was a time penalty. And then he pitted anyway and was in the pits for 2 laps, so never quite got to the bottom of that. But anyway, he'll be at the back of the grid, hopefully lined up in the correct spot now. Here we go then, the 3rd and final race of the weekend for the Ginetta GT Academy. Angus Whiteside, the green car on pole position. Alongside him, the blue and yellow, is Gilbert Yates. They've started to rise. 20 minutes of racing, get underway. Whiteside away well from pole position. Not a good start at all from Ed Akers, though. The orange car still spinning the wheels, even long after the rest of the field have gone past him. So Ed Akers went from the back to 6th earlier on. He'll have to do the same sort of thing again now after a really tardy start. It is Whiteside that leads the way. Yates in 2nd, Trice in 3rd. So grid order for at least the top 3 as they round Riches and head towards the Wilson hairpin for the first time. Leaden skies, but a dry track for now. Doesn't stop Gilbert Yates out breaking himself, though, and almost opening the door for TOBY TRICE to slip through into 2nd place. I don't think TOBY did that, though. He's no, still there in 3rd, then. The blue and orange fronted number 22 car of TOBY TRICE. There, look, the orange car is Ed Akers, so Akers behind Tom Hartley Jr., who's had a good start, actually. Conversely, he's got past 1 or 2. Akers, though, slipping down from 6th on the grid to 12th by the end of Sector 1. Looks to the outside of Hartley Jr. as they both watch Martin Wills have a go at Danny Dwyer. But that move didn't quite come off either. So, despite everyone's best efforts to cause incident at the start, we do have a clean opening half a lap then. And for the time being, at least, Gilbert Yates is living quite nicely with the pace of Angus Whiteside. Angus Whiteside not pulling away quite to the extent that we saw him do so in the earlier races. Just bedding himself in. Of course, they'll have a limit on the number of new tyres they're allowed over the weekend as well, so it does pay to look after your tyres in the earlier races. Maybe Angus has been able to do that. Down the straight they go. You can see how close the top 2 are, and Yates getting away from Trice in 3rd, who is still your GTA class leader. Oh, big lock-up for Martin Wills, and up the inside of him tries to go. That's not Ed Akers anymore, so he must have gone past Danny Dwyer. Indeed he has. So Wills is into 9th, but nearly lost it there at the sequence of corners that he went off at twice in race 2. He went straight on early on in the race, and then he had a rotation there later on. And he did well there, actually, to avoid spinning again. Through the second half of the lap then, Whiteside has started to get away slightly from Yates, so he is now looking like the same dominant driver we've seen so far this weekend. There you can see the gap between the top 2 as the field streaks through them. At the back, look, you can see both Tom Hartley Jr., well, I was going to say, and Darren Leung making progress, but actually Darren has only gained 1 place. That's at the expense of Neil Wallace. So Darren perhaps still feeling something not quite right with the car, maybe, after it was a pretty big hit that he gave to Tom Hartley Jr. in race 2. So I wonder if maybe that's slowing down a tad now. Oh dear, that it will slow Danny Dwyer down as he doesn't get anywhere near the apex of the Wilson hairpin. Through goes Wills, and Tom Hartley Jr. Also looking to try and find a way through. In fact, Hartley Jr. has dropped behind someone as well. Out onto the infield section they go then. Battle for 5th, Roy Alderslade and Julian Wantling. I seem to recall these two scrapping in the previous race for a while before Alderslade pulled away a bit in 4th place and left Wantling to have a go at, or defend I should say, from the charging Ed Akers. Through Hamilton again then. Number 7 car there is Gary Wager, who is running quite strongly actually at the moment, just about fending off Roy Alderslade. 4th place for him then. Wager started 7th on the grid, so 3 places gained, and he's holding on to it just about, although the 3 ahead of him are starting to gap him ever so slightly. There are the leaders. Now, interestingly, Gilbert Yates nearly a 10th faster than Whiteside in the first sector. He's then a couple of hundredths faster in the middle sector. So Gilbert Yates is well up for this, isn't he? Side by side, almost Wes Pearce gets up the inside of Julian Wantling. That was for 6th position. But these cars, of course, all identical. That is rather the point of these one-make Ginetta series. It's all down to the drivers and, of course, the preparation of the cars. All of the rookie cars, though, prepared by the same team, the Want to Race squad. So in theory, there really is no difference in performance between the rookie cars. These two, though, both running within the GTA class. They head through Corham then out across the start-finish line. Now, what are these lap times going to be for the leaders? Whiteside is going to come through first, of course, and he sets a 2:07.7. In the end, he is 0.3 quicker than Yates, but he gained all of that and more in the final sector because he was tracking to be a tenth or so slower than his chaser in the first two sectors. Yates 1.6 ahead of Trice because he was 0.6 faster than him on that first full flying lap. So there are the leading three, big gaps between them. Indeed, real battling, very much going on behind them. Gary Wager fourth and Roy Alderslade in fifth, then Pierce 6th and 7th. There's Ed Akers still stuck behind Hartley Jr. as Darren Leung has a big go up the inside of Sean Fleming. So this is Leung, a rookie driver, trying to pass Fleming, who's running in the GTA class. But as I said, it still counts towards the same championship as well as your individual class championships as well. That move didn't pay off though. What about Hartley Jr. on Lee Goldsmith? Goldsmith covers the middle ground there, and Hartley dare go to the outside because Ed Akers is close enough then to fill the gap on the inside. So that will help though. Mistake from Goldsmith coming out of Agostini. Does that give Hartley Jr. a run? And it did, but the straight between Agostini and Hamilton just isn't long enough, and he didn't really want to risk running halfway up the inside there into what is a really tricky, clumsy little left-hander there at Hamilton. But it's very easy to make contact at if you run through there wheel-to-wheel, especially if you're only sort of half committing to the move. You've got to be fully alongside, I think, to make that corner your own. Again, in the first sector, Yates is quicker than Whiteside, this time by 1.5 tenths, but then loses all of that in the second sector. So Whiteside, I think, just managing the pace here, really. This is Wager still keeping Alderslade behind him. Roy Alderslade, 5th place then for him. Ed Akers and Tom Hartley Jr. battling away as well. I do love watching these cars coming, particularly throughout of the tight corners. It seems quite hard to get the power down. I know that there's a little bit of grease out there maybe from the couple of showers we've had, although the track looks dry from here. But it really seems like they struggle to get the power down sometimes out of tight corners like Nelson, like this one here at Murray's. And watching the drivers fight the cars as they accelerate out of those tight corners is pretty exciting to watch. Close racing as well here, as we're seeing. Now this pair that have been fighting for fourth, Gary Wager and Roy Alderslade, have company now, don't they? Julian Wantling and Wes Pearce have reeled them in. Wantling on that lap 0.6 faster than Alderslade, who was 0.2 faster than Wager, so they're all bunching together, allowing the top three to really pull a gap now to the braking zone at Wilson. Everyone's sort of covering each other off though. Big lock up further back. That's Hartley Jr. around the outside of Goldsmith. I mean, he's ahead, but for all the good it will do, because he's out in the weeds coming through the corner and actually ends up losing one, maybe two places. Akers has gone through. Darren Leung is alongside him now, but on the outside line into Palmer's. Brake lights come on simultaneously, but Leung is on the better line. It's the wider line, so he can carry more speed into the turn, and the number 11 car goes through as well. So a bit of frustration maybe there creeping in for Tom Hartley Jr. Been sat behind Goldsmith for a number of laps and haven't been able to find a way past, and now Ed Akers moves up to challenge as well. Excuse me, Hartley been stuck behind, behind Goldsmith, and Akers now gains that 11th place, but would quite like to move into the top 10 if at all possible. As I think about it, into Oggies, but again, you've got to be really good on the brakes to make that stick, and then he gets very sideways at the apex. Thought for a second he might have got the switchback move made there, but a bit too eager on that right foot. This is what I was saying, these cars are hard to get off these tight corners, it seems. Here the grooved tyres, the Michelin road tyres that they run, screeching there in protest as they round the right-hander onto the Bentley straight. There's the Pink Panther, Martin Wills' Assetto Motorsport number 44 car, pointing the right way for the time being as it comes through Brundle and Nelson. 8th place for him, 6th within GTA. Top two overall, remember, are leading our rookie class. Whiteside and Yates 1st and 2nd within that class, 1st and 2nd within the race. They're 2.5 seconds or so apart now. Toby Trice, strangely not able to live with their pace. He's fallen to nearly 3 seconds. In fact, by the end of the lap, it may well be over 3 seconds adrift of Gilbert Yates. This then is the scrap, isn't it? 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th and 8th, all streaming across the line, nose to tail. Still the same order then, Wager 4th, Alderslade 5th, peaks to the inside, but more to try and cool the engine, I think, than actually make a move. He was too far back. And you've got Wantling in 6th, whereas Pierce 7th, and Martin Wills in 8th there, the pink car at the back of the group. So they move their way through the first couple of corners. That really quick right-hander at Riches. Contrast that then to the Wilson hairpin, which is one of the tighter corners on the circuit. You can see why this place does offer up a number of overtaking opportunities. Lots of big braking zones, often coming after quite high-speed corners as well. So if you can force the car in front to make a mistake, then you are then often close enough to have a stab at it into the next braking zone. Having said that, no one ducking out of line that time as they head into Agostini. Dwyer then 9th. Ed Akers is 10th because both he and Darren Leung have gone past Lee Goldsmith on that lap. And Goldsmith had a really slow lap, actually, so I don't know if something happened to the number 10 car in the second half of the lap. Martin Wills dives up the inside. That's a really brave move on Wes Pearce into Oggies. But if you get to the apex first, it's your corner then. And that was actually really good stuff from Wills. And then Pearce ran a bit wide on the grass coming out of the turn. So Wills does move into 7th. Textbook overtake that. He sort of set that up a lap ago. Had a bit of a dress rehearsal and then did finally make the lunge a lap later. So move Wills into 7th. How much more progress can he make? That's the question. He started this one down in 10th place, so actually already making some progress as they round the Brundle and Nelson complex. The leaders, though, already at Murray's Corner into the second half of the race now. 9.5 minutes to go. Angus Whiteside coming through to complete lap number 5, so we should get another 10 laps in this time. Gilbert Yates is not sticking with him, but his pace is pretty impressive, in fairness. Yates, his personal best lap in this race, in fact that was his personal best, a 2 minutes 7.936. How does that compare to his previous race? He did a 2:07.5 in the last one, but the tyres now with a few more laps on there under them, and you would expect maybe the pace not to be quite as hot in this one, but he's staying a lot closer to Whiteside really than anyone's been able to so far this weekend. Still under 3 seconds that lead gap, close enough that if Whiteside hit problems or maybe slid off on the, if we got a bit of a shower again, he could still get into contention for this one, could Gilbert. There's Toby Trice in 3rd, 6 seconds adrift and exactly 9 seconds off the race lead. And then this gaggle comes through still in the same order. Then Wills up into 7th, which we saw a lap ago. And now, look, he's closing in on Julian Wantling, who defends into Agostini, but this isn't necessarily where Wills is trying to overtake. He's good through this next couple of corners, isn't he? If he's going to be able to do it, then it's going to be through a good run through Hamilton, and then maybe pop it back up the inside into Oggies. Let's see, he couldn't be any closer to Wantling as they go through the left-hander. Is he going to have a go on the inside again? No, he's not close enough, and actually, look at that, Wes Pearce thinks, right, anything you can do, I can do better, except he can't, because he doesn't make the move stick, but it was an attempt to overtake Martin Wills in exactly the same way that Martin passed him a lap earlier. An inside line at Oggies, it's a risky place to pass because it's such a tight corner, and by the time you pop out of line to try and outbrake someone, the person you're outbraking has probably already committed to the corner themselves. Wills again tries to use the slipstream down the back straight, but these cars don't seem to generate such a big tow, not like the G40s that we see racing in the GT5 Challenge. Maybe a little bit of a speed advantage in the slipstream, but of course any speed advantage you get down the straight from running behind another car, you lose through the corners, because unlike the G40s, these cars, these G56s, do have a front splitter, a rear diffuser, a rear wing. They generate a bit more downforce, therefore, making it harder to run in this dirty air. The more downforce a car has, the harder it is to run nose to tail, which actually makes this all the more impressive, because still this group of cars is absolutely as one as they come across the line. Wills less than a car length up behind Julian Wantling. This is the fight for 6th place, but it's for 4th position within the GTA class. So another look at the inside of Riches. It doesn't really work that often, and all it does is compromise your exit speed a bit. So Wills then not close enough to get up the inside into the Wilson hair, but he does have a look to the outside. There's a lock up there from Wes Pearce behind. That will have caught Martin Wills' attention. Always panic when you hear that noise, that you're about to receive a whack from the car behind. But Wes kept it under control. Danny Dwyer sort of inching his way back onto the tail of this group. And I'll tell you the drive that we haven't seen the performance from that I thought we would. Ed Akers, look, the orange car in the background, not gaining on this group, despite the fact they are seemingly holding each other up a bit. Akers just not making the progress that he was. There he is. Nothing obviously wrong with the car. His pace, let's see, his last lap, his previous best is a 2 minutes 8.1, and in the previous race he did a 2 minutes 8.6, so he's actually going quicker than he went in race 2, but running a lot further down the order, which is strange. So everybody else finding a bit more pace, it would seem, and Ed not quite able to live with it. It's a job to know where to look here, isn't it? There's potential for action everywhere in this group, as they're pairing off a bit now. Wager and Alderslade together, Wantling and Wills together there, and then Pearce and Dwyer behind. It looks as though it's the second of those pairs that might be the tastiest battle, going into Brundle and Nelson. Wills to the outside of Alderslade, trying to force the inside line into Nelson, but he didn't get there. Gets a good exit though. You can possibly get up the inside of the bomb hole, but no, still Wills frustratedly stuck behind, and as he sees Wager and Alderslade escaping up the road, so his frustration will build. 5 minutes still to go though, so we're 3/4 of the way through the race. He's got time here. If he gets past Wantling, that would be 4th in class, but of course he can see a potential 2nd place in class if he caught and then passed Alderslade and Wager. Easier said than done, of course, but to have any chance of that, he really needs to clear the car ahead of him of Roy Alderslade, the Assetto Motorsport car, ASAP. Martin Wills, also an Assetto Motorsport car. Now, that didn't look good, did it? The black clouds are starting to gather. Now, there was rain forecast, quite heavy rain, at 3 o'clock. It is 7 minutes past 3 now, so it's a little late, but this, I think, is the heavier rain shower that I was told might be here just before our, or an hour or so maybe before our second British GT race, which has always had the potential to wreak havoc upon our Ginetta drivers, and that definitely looks like rain not that far in the distance. So bright sunshine again on the start-finish line. You can see they're driving back into that now as they come into Agostini, but I think the conditions may well change before the final 4 minutes of this race are done. Not good news for Angus Whiteside, who's 3.5 seconds up on Gilbert Yates. That could disappear in a flash if he finds a wet bit of road, and as the race leader, he's possibly more likely to find that wet road and be caught out by it than those chasing him. And what might it mean for this group of cars as well, who are so finely poised? This group of 6 of them, all covered by only 2 or 3 seconds. A mistake from any one of them could really, really affect the race order. Wes Pearce, I'm afraid, number 32, being given a 5-second track limits penalty. So the man running 8th position, the all-white number 32, who had a brilliant start in the earlier race today, but in the end managed only a 9th place finish. As there, Martin Wills again tries this outside line on Alderslade, doesn't quite pay off for him. The Pink Panther stays behind. Yes, now I've pointed it out, that sky really does look more and more ominous, and yet look at that. The complete contrast over at that part of the circuit. It is remarkable, the conditions that we've had. I know us Brits like to talk about the weather, but it's given us lots to talk about this weekend. You never quite know what it's going to do from 1 minute to the next. Right, 2 3/4 minutes to go means there are 2 laps remaining then in this 9th round of the 2021 Ginetta GT Academy. It's all been about the fight for 4th place. It's not exploded into life in quite the way that it has threatened to, but there is time yet, and that weather possibly could be the catalyst for a bit more action. Down to Riches they go. Martin Wills looks up the inside of Julian Wantling, but he's, again, not close enough. You don't do enough braking, really, into Riches to outbrake somebody there. Better to force them to defend and carry the speed off the corner. And into the Wilson hairpin, which remains dry for now. This is the part of the circuit that will get wet first, because this is where the rain is coming from. It's not quite arrived yet. Drivers will be hoping and praying that it doesn't arrive for at least another 5 minutes. Let them get the race completed, get back into the pit lane, and then it can rain as heavy as you like, and it won't bother these drivers. Their day will be done, this, their final race of the weekend. Agostini again, Wills closing back in on Wantling, but as they continue to catch Wager and Alderslade, that does change the dynamic a little bit, because now Wantling might get distracted by trying to attack the cars ahead. Wills a bit wide there through Hamilton. He was trying, I think, to set up that move again, wasn't he, into Oggies, but he just overdid it slightly, a bit too eager there through the left-hander. So out they go through Williams, down the Bentley straight for the penultimate time. Wills seems strong out of there, doesn't he? Crowd not yet putting their umbrellas up down at Brundle and Nelson, but time might be coming. Gary Wager through, Alderslade through, Wantling and Wills side by side, and this time Wills, I think, might just have done it. Oh, there's contact between the two. Wills is over the grass, he's over the curb. There may well be secondary contact if he's not careful, and he's going to lose a place. Oh no, Martin Wills, I mean, he loses a place on the road, but that, remember, is the Wes Pearce car that has this penalty, but Wills has a puncture, I think, or broken suspension. The car is off at the very next corner, and Martin Wills, having been so patient, he finally got up the inside, and contact was made. We'll try and get another look at that if we can. Up the inside there, though, there was another challenge. That is the 32 of Pearce making more ground up, clearing Julian Wantling, who now is under threat from Danny Dwyer and Ed Akers and Darren Leung as we go on to the final lap of the race. Across the start-finish line they go then. New fastest lap for the race leader, Angus Whiteside, so the track is still dry for the time being. Down to Riches they go then. The quick right-hander, and that's the 23 car diving across to the inside line. Akers is on the inside, he's over the curb, there's almost contact, and Ed Akers just avoids clattering into the side of Danny Dwyer's car. There is a bit of leaning going on as they come out of the corner and into the braking zone at the Wilson hairpin then. Sideways up in front, almost a spin there actually for Wes Pearce. Did well to hang on to that. Leung goes round the outside of Ed Akers. He's on the grass, he's got no traction, and so Akers will manage to get him back again. I tell you what, Wes Pearce is driving his socks off here to try and overcome this 5-second penalty. At the moment, a 5-second penalty, though, would drop him all the way down to 10th place. He is 6th on the road, 10th on corrected times. That's why he's pushing so hard. Leung up the inside of Akers, then into Agostini, a lock-up, and Akers goes off anyway. Ed Akers runs straight onto the grass. I think he was a bit distracted, maybe, by the car that had launched itself up the inside, but, well, that is a shame for Ed, who's been very entertaining to watch all day. And sadly, 9th place looks like it's, or 10th place, I should say, as good as it will get. For Angus Whiteside, though, this really is as good as it gets. 3 races, 3 victories. He has led every single racing lap of the weekend in the Ginetta GT Academy. I know yesterday's race was shortened, but he was some 3.5 seconds ahead at the time of the red flag, so unlikely that he was going to be beaten in that one. A truly dominant weekend, more so than, I'd say, Toby Trice's triple race win at Brands Hatch, because, as I said earlier on, Toby didn't lead that many laps at Brands Hatch, even though he won all 3 races. This has been a crushing performance for Angus Whiteside then, who will again take points out of Toby Trice's championship lead as he wins 3 from 3 here at the Snetterton 300 circuit. Angus Whiteside beats the field, he beats the rain as well, and he is victorious once again by 6.5 seconds over Gilbert Yates in 2nd place. 3rd should be Toby Trice. 4th place is kind of anyone's guess, really, because that is actually Gary Wager behind Roy Alderslade now. So Alderslade has snatched 4th place away on the final lap. There he goes across the line. Alderslade up to 4th, Wager 5th, then 6th on the road should be Wes Pearce. But where is he on corrected times? We have these 5 seconds on, and wait for the timing screen to do so, because it should be Julian Wantling that goes ahead of him and Danny Dwyer, although actually Tom Hartley Jr. maybe not. There is Martin Wills. Now, how frustrated is Martin Wills, do you think? He didn't look happy, did he? And who can blame him? Because he sat patiently for the majority of that race, to be honest, just waiting for an opportunity to pass Julian Wantling cleanly. He got alongside, he had his nose almost in front, I think, as he went round the outside at Brundle, and contact was made. Thankfully, I don't have to decide who was at fault, because it looked almost 50-50, but I'm sure Martin will have his own opinion on that. Wait and see what the clerk of the course believes. Anyway, none of this really matters to Angus Whiteside, because he had no real threat in that one. And as he makes his way round to the pit lane, the heavens start to open on the pit straight. That is what you call perfect timing. Angus Whiteside then wins all 3 races in the Ginetta GT Academy here this weekend. Gilbert Yates in 2nd. Toby Trice is 3rd and does at least get a hat-trick of GTA class wins. Roy Alderslade 4th, Gary Wager 5th ahead of Julian Wantling, then Danny Dwyer, Wes Pearce, Tom Hartley Jr. from the back. Well, near the back anyway. Darren Leung was at the back and he worked his way into 10th place. Ed Akers, unfortunately, 11th after that last lap off. Lee Goldsmith had a quiet run to 12th ahead of Sean Fleming. Neil Wallace and Martin Wills, of course, a non-finisher after that late contact. The class wins. Angus Whiteside wins the rookie class and Toby Trice wins in GTA. So dramatic stuff then. The weather really has closed in all of a sudden here at Snetterton, almost exactly as the checkered flag came out. So we just about got that race in time before the heavens open. It does cause problems for the drivers in our next race, though, for the GT5 Challenge. Look at the rain coming down there at Coreham. Those GT5 Challenge cars that are out on track next, they run on slick tyres, and they will already be in the assembly area, so they'll have made their tyre choice already. We may get a delayed start, I suppose, if the rain sets in for long enough, but that's going to create quite a bit of head-scratching for the drivers in our next race. Stick around for that one. But the GT Academy drivers, very happy, I think, that their race finished when it did. See, this is the problem here today. It's not just raining, it's very windy as well, and that is not a good combination, because you have to get the brolly out, but you are rather running the risk of getting blown away, or at least having a broken umbrella to deal with. So hopefully the spectators, I'm sure those who are regulars here at Snetterton have sat out in the rain a few times. Is that a sarcastic round of applause from Martin Wills, I wonder, to Julian Watling? No, I think he's applauding everybody. Martin Wills, one of the real characters of the championship. Unfortunate to see him out. He was the only retirement in the end, but that is racing, I suppose. And he'll be back out again next time at Silverstone on the national circuit for the penultimate event of the year. 6 races to go in the championship, so we are halfway through. Right then, highlights. A terrible start was made by Ed Akers. That was the first incident of note. He was very nearly collected by some cars behind, but thankfully contact was averted. It was Angus Whiteside from pole position that led into turn 1, but Gilbert Yates was impressive in the early running, looking quicker in the first half of the lap than Whiteside and sticking right with the double winner up to that point in the 52 car. Martin Wills' race started with a lock-up down at the section of corners that caused him so much trouble in the earlier race. There was also a big lock-up for the number 10 of Lee Goldsmith, which dropped him down a number of positions at the Wilson hairpin. Further up the order, Wes Pearce was on a charge, but he was pushing a bit too hard and exceeded track limits there. He did it a few more times and was eventually handed a 5-second track limits penalty that would drop him down the order. Tom Hartley Jr. then came up to attack Lee Goldsmith, got it all wrong into the Wilson hairpin, went out on the dirt, and through went Ed Akers. Through also would go Darren Leung, who was coming through from the back of the grid. One of the moves of the race was made by Martin Wills at the inside of the 32 of Wes Pearce at Oggies. He got through cleanly in what was a really committed move. This, though, was not quite so pretty. Contact as he made his way past Julian Watling, put him over the curbs. It did some damage to the left front corner, and that would unfortunately put Martin Wills out. He tried to carry on, got as far as the next corner, then ran off the road. Towards the end, it was the battling going on towards the back of the top 6 that was the most entertaining. Ed Akers there trying to get up the inside of Danny Dwyer into the first corner. Danny would eventually finish on the rookie class podium, whilst Martin Wills was off the road with that left front damage following the contact at the complex. Up front, Angus Whiteside, though, was dominant. He led every lap of the weekend to take another race victory, his 4th of the season now, just one shy of Toby Trice, the championship leader. With 6 races to go over 2 events, it is far from over in the Ginetta GT Academy. Join us again next time for more great action.